So welcome everyone to food processing, an integral part of the food system with Kate. Sorry, Kate, I've already forgot your new name, Kate Menifee.
Menifee.
Yes, and Liz Buxton. And before we get started, we just want to say thanks to our sponsors. These great organizations and vendors have been supporting us, and we couldn't do it without that support. We encourage everyone to go ahead and buy their great products and mention how much you appreciate their support of NOFA. I'll want to take a moment to remember that we are viewing and presenting and hosting this workshop from lands in New England and across the world that have been inhabited for a long time before our European colonization. We encourage everyone to use this interactive map to learn more and find more information about the people who lived here on the land before us and to honor their time here. And at this point, we are ready to roll with your presentation. Go ahead, Kate, when you're ready.
Awesome, thanks, Doug. And hello to everybody, welcome. I'm excited to see that we're quite a small group. So I was planning to present in more of a webinar style, but like Doug said, please feel free to jump in with questions in the chat and he'll help to moderate that. And we can have some discussion throughout if it makes sense. So hi everybody, I'm Kate. I'm here presenting today with my colleague Liz Buxton. We are from the Western Mass Food Processing Center, which is a shared use facility up in Greenfield, Mass in Franklin County. And I'll share some more details about our center in a moment. But I did just want to start with sort of a brief agenda so you all kind of know what to expect over the next hour. And I do want to note that I have some wild chickens and rooster in the yard and I was hoping to be out on my lovely deck, but it's seeming like that's not going to work out.
Crazy rooster.
So we're going to pop inside. Okay, so we'll start by sharing some information about the Food Processing Center, which really is a program of the Franklin County Community Development Corporation. I'll go into some more details about both ends of the organization in a moment. So we'll share some information about the services that we offer, both to food businesses and to farms. And I'm hoping we have both in attendance here today. Then we'll talk a little bit about the value added work that we do for local farms in the region. And then we'll also share some information about kind of what it takes to get a food product off the ground. So if you're here as a foodie, as someone who has, considered turning an old family recipe into a food business for a long time, this is the place for you. We'll kind of walk you through all of those steps and really what it means to prototype a food product and get a food business off the ground. And then, like I said, there'll be time at the end for questions. I think we maybe have about 45 minutes of content, but feel free to jump in throughout. So I thought it would be great if we could just start with some intro. So again, Kate Menifee, just had a name change. So I keep, if I mess it up, it's Menifee or Venne. I keep toggling back and forth. But I'm our business development coordinator at the CDC. And so I'm sort of the first point of contact for new food businesses. So people have an idea, a thought, and they reach out to us and they connect with me first to kind of generally discuss the idea and see if it could be feasible at our food processing center. And then from there, I will shuffle them along to Liz, who'll go deeper into product development and food science with them. And before I did this work, I was doing some farm to school work up in Vermont. So I've kind of worked on that aspect of the food system as well. And Liz, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yep. So I'm Liz Buxton and I'm the director of operations. I wear a lot of hats and I don't even get to wear that hat anymore. So I'm a chef by trade, and I have been in the food business for 35 years. So you can do your math, you can tell how old I am really. I started when I first was able to work in a restaurant. And I've done all different types of food work, and I've worked in restaurants. I have worked in, I worked at a college for 13 years. I worked in business and industry feeding. I've done large catering and ran a fresh food commissary. And at one point I decided I worked too many hours, and I decided that I was going to go into K-12 food service. So I did that for 4 years, which was when I found the Franklin County Community Development Corporation and the Western Mass Food Processing Center. And I was just enthralled with what they were doing for the local food system. So when the job that came up to run the center, I jumped at it. And here I am 7 years later. And I love working with food entrepreneurs, and I love working with farms and everyone's different ideas of bringing products to market. And it's a very rewarding job for sure.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, so I thought it would be good if we could just start with kind of a general overview of the organization. Sometimes it can get a little bit confusing to folks. So we are the Western Mass Food Processing Center, which you may have heard of, but we are also the Franklin County Community Development Corporation. So the Franklin County CDC is one of, I think, 65 or 70 CDCs in the state of Massachusetts. Many of these CDCs do low-income housing support, whereas we focus on economic development, helping businesses to start, scale up, and grow. And so we offer a couple of different types of services, and we've been in operation for 40 years now. So the CDC, I think, started in 1979, and then the Food Processing Center was built 20 years ago. So we've been processing food for 20 years now, and that's changed a lot over the past 20 years. But the different services that we offer to help businesses start and grow are what's listed here. So the first one is really just general business development counseling and technical assistance. And so we are a staff of 20. A couple of us focus on the technical assistance with new and growing businesses. So that can look like a one-on-one meeting. Amy Shapiro is our business development director, and she meets one-on-one with businesses in the Pioneer Valley and actually far beyond that at this point. And she's doing that every day. So she could be working with anywhere from 20 to 100 clients, I would say, in a given year, and has worked with hundreds of clients over the past 20 years she's been with the organization. And so she works with folks kind of working through their business plan, their financial projections, their marketing plan, their target market. So she really helps them to kind of dig into the tough business questions. We also do offer from time to time some workshops for new businesses. So on topics like QuickBooks for small business or small business marketing. So you'll see that from time to time in our organization as well. The other program that we offer is our loan program. So we offer loans anywhere from $5,000 to $200,000. And we'll often take on risks that a bank won't. So sometimes new businesses will go to a bank, they'll get turned down, and they'll come to us and we'll take that risk and give them the loan. We're also home to the Pioneer Valley Grows Loan Fund. So this is a really amazing program. It's a community investment fund. So folks in the community can invest and get some return on their investment for that money. And that funding is allocated specifically to food and farm businesses. I think about 80% of that funding is allocated to food and farm businesses in the Pioneer Valley, but some of it goes beyond that across the state as well. And then, of course, we have the Food Processing Center. So we work with folks making food products, helping them to prototype, scale, and kind of incubate them as they start their food businesses. And again, I think, so the Food Processing Center, let me skip to the next slide. The Food Processing Center was actually built with a USDA funding. I think it was $1 million grant 20 years ago. And this was really in response to how many food businesses we were seeing come through the CDC doors. So people were coming to us looking to make a food product, and they needed a space to incubate that product, to develop it, and to scale it. And so that's why, that's kind of how the Food Processing Center came to be. 20 years ago, from the stories that I've heard, it was really more of like a shared use kitchen space. Folks would come in with their own team, oftentimes farms, and rent the space and make a food product. And we have grown and changed a lot since then, invested in new equipment, and we now offer kind of a variety of different services, including co-packing, which I'll talk about. And these are just a couple of pictures of filling of kitchen garden sriracha, and then one of our bays that trucks can back up to for distribution, which is a great resource that many of our food businesses take advantage of. Again, I just wanted to include our mission. So the mission of the Food Processing Center is to promote economic development through entrepreneurship, provide opportunities for sustaining local ag, and promote best practices for food producers. And a lot of that, has to do with food safety and compliance with FDA regulations. So all of that can be complicated, and we really try to help food producers kind of navigate all of that as they start up. And I love this photo of one of our employees holding broccoli in season. I had to include it. So I'll talk about our freezing program, but we process local food June through October every year. And we get kind of a big diversity in vegetable size. So you can see we're processing these large heads at the same time, trying to process tiny heads of broccoli, and it can get crazy. I wanted to share this graphic. We're here today to talk about food processing and how it fits into the regional food system. And I think sometimes food processing or processed food that terminology can get such a bad rep. And it's often like this overlooked piece of the food system. I used to use this graphic here in my farm to school work when I was meeting with teachers and students. We would use this with middle school and high school students to talk about the food system. And you'll note that it is missing food processing altogether. So I went to find a graphic for a presentation recently and came back to this because I love it. It's from the nurse curriculum and was like, oh my gosh, it doesn't incorporate anything that we do. So you see, it starts with harvesting or growing, harvesting, packing, transporting, and kind of misses that piece. And I think food processing, like I said, it gets a bad rep, but it can really, we see it as adding value to food, which is oftentimes local food. So we're bringing in local fruits and vegetables, we're adding value to them. We're helping farmers make more money on their products. So they're, making a value-added product often helps them to get a higher margin on those fruits and vegetables. And I think there's also kind of a case to be made for the modern culture that needs foods that are, families need food that's easy to cook with, ready to eat, come home from work and make a simple dinner. And so I feel like we really feed into that as well. And then this is one other graphic that does include food processing. And then I thought this definition of food processing was fun. It encompasses kind of a lot of the different things that we do at the Food Processing Center. So we wash.
I don't know.
So we bring in local foods and non-local foods, and we do all sorts of things to them. We wash, we chop, we pasteurize, we freeze, we ferment. There's so much that goes into processing food, and there's such a wide variety of processed food products. So processed food doesn't have to be Oreos and Lay's potato chips. It can be tomato puree and blueberry jam and, vegan frozen meals. You name it, we have probably done it at some point, or at least tried to do it. So I did want to kind of give an overview of the services that we offer. So like I said, our shared use space, it's a 2,000 square foot facility. And in the past, we did a lot of rental, and we still do that. So oftentimes, it seems to be mostly local farms that take advantage of this service. So they come in with their own team and they rent kitchen space and they make a product. One great example is Old Friends Farm. I think they're in Amherst. They make their infused honeys at our facility. And they bring in their own team and they make their turmeric honey and their ginger honey. And they use the space to add value to something that they're already processing. So that's just one example. We have a couple of others, but mostly what we do now is co-pack. And so for those who haven't heard that term, really what it means is a food producer hires our crew to make their product for them. I would say that, Liz, correct me if I'm wrong, probably 80% of our clients take advantage of this service now.
Right. Definitely we're unique in that we have different levels of co-packing. We have some co-packing where the client wants to be involved and and is out there stirring the pot and helping us fill. And then we have other co-packs where, you know, we don't see the client at all and they just ship us everything and we ship out a finished product. Yes, definitely about 80% of our business right now is in some sort of that co-packing classification.
Yeah, and because we're a nonprofit and it's, you know, we're all about economic development and seeing businesses grow, I would say we're pretty flexible with whatever the food producer kind of wants to do or needs to do, we try to make that happen. So, you know, if someone comes in with an idea, they prototype with us, they start to scale, they may want to come to every production for the first year. And that's great, and we welcome that. Other people after 3 productions say, oh my God, I want to go focus on the sales and marketing. That's, you know, that's my talent. And so they step away and we produce for them, whether it's weekly or monthly or quarterly. So we kind of call that like a hybrid co-pack. And then of course, we do value-added products for local farms, which kind of fits into the rest of what we do, but sometimes we kind of pull it out as this separate piece. So we've done this for a long time, making things like applesauces and tomato purees, freezing things like peppers and berries. So things that farmers can either sell at their farm stand or even potentially sell wholesale. So we have we've done this for a long time, but we have recently formalized the program a little bit in that we now we've created like a plug and play value add model. And I won't go into detail now because I have a couple of slides on that later. So I did want to include just some photos of some of the different products that we do, just so that you could get a sense of kind of the variety that we can do. So we've done frozen meal kits. We have done beverages. We've done hot sauces. We've done pickles, salsas, jams, a little bit of baking here and there, although that's not something we specialize in. And I should mention that we really do sort of specialize in hot pack and hold productions. So anything that's kind of like a soup or a topping or a sauce, something that can be heated in one of our large kettles and filled hot into jars. That's what we do really well. And I think we've really made a point to invest in equipment that streamlines that type of production. There are other food processors in the region. I have a map of them that I'll show at the end of the presentation, and we partner with them regularly, but we do all kind of try to specialize to some extent because we want to keep unit costs down for our food producers. So the primary part of the kitchen is really these 3 large kettles that are 100 and 125 gallons. And so a lot of what we're doing is heating up product in those kettles and bottling it for folks. I wanted to just include one slide about sort of generally how are different types of foods preserved. So maybe you're here because you're considering making a food product. And I find that many of our food entrepreneurs come to us with an idea, something that they've, you know, a family recipe or something they've been playing around with for a long time, but they haven't thought about how they're going to make it shelf stable. And so that's typically something we kind of help people with when they first come to us. But these are just some of the ways in which food is preserved. And so a big one that we work with is acidification. So preserving a food by controlling the pH or the acidity. So that might be something like tomato sauce or a salsa. We also control with water activity. So you can make a food shelf stable by controlling water activity, and that's really just reducing the water that's available for pathogen growth. So products like hot fudges, hot sauce, not hot sauce, hot fudge, baked goods, all of those things are kind of cooking the water off and reducing the water that's available. Not shelf stable, but freezing is another kind of process that we do in the facility that extends the shelf life of a food. So we freeze lots of fruits and vegetables and perhaps other things over the years. I'll talk about our freezing technology in a few minutes. And we've also had clients who have done fermented products like sauerkraut and fire cider. We have not done anything with smoking, to my knowledge. That is not something that we're able to do. We don't have the equipment for that. And we also don't work with meats or unpasteurized milk at our facility. And then ready-to-eat foods are kind of an interesting one. Because we're a shared use space, we have stayed away from ready-to-eat foods to some extent. So something like a hummus that someone's gonna take out of the fridge and just take out and eat as a snack, and they're not gonna be cooking. We have done those things, but they really require a very well thought out food safety plan. And so we have to do a lot of hand-holding with clients if they're considering making a ready-to-eat product. I wanted to include this slide just because, and I don't know if I can see the chat while I'm presenting, but perhaps Liz can take a look. I was wondering if anyone was here today because they're interested in making a food product. And if that's the case, it would be really fun if you could share in the chat, if you're willing, what's on your mind and what you've been thinking about. And these are just a couple of other food products. So we do some flavored maple syrups, super hot sauces and salsas. So what it takes to make a food product, you know, there is a lot to starting a food business. And I think sometimes the rules and regulations can be a little bit daunting. And so our organization and our partner organizations, we are really here to handhold and support food businesses as they navigate all of the questions that come up. So the first thing that really comes up is prototyping a recipe. So maybe you're playing around with something at home and you're making a gallon of it on your stove. We're going to want to bring you in and talk about what that product is going to look like on a commercial scale. So making 30 gallons of that or making 200 gallons of that is going to look very different than making a gallon. So we may have to help you to tweak it so that the equipment we have or another facility has can make it more efficient. And because not every ingredient will scale 1-to-1. So you sometimes might have to scale back your salt or your water. Those are kind of the first product development tweaks that we'll work with a new business on. And we call that the prototype phase. And oftentimes the first prototype isn't perfect. You know, we make 30 gallons of a tomato sauce that someone's been making for years and it just isn't right. It just isn't what they expected. So we'll maybe prototype again and continue tweaking it until they're happy with it and it feels consistent with what they're expecting. And then from there we scale. So we often start at 25 or 30 gallons, but we do have the capacity to do 200 gallon and 300 gallon runs in our facility. And of course, the more you make in one production, the lower your unit cost is going to be. So we try to bump people up as they're able. Another sort of service or technical assistance that we provide is just sort of general business planning. So we do ask all of our clients to demonstrate that they have at least kind of thought through a business plan before coming in and producing inventory. We never want someone to be, you know, sitting on inventory that they can't sell because they haven't thought through what their target market is or, you know, what need they are trying to fill in the community, as well as kind of projecting out financially, what is this going to look like over the first year and the first 3 years and the first 5 years. So all of these things we really like to have people kind of think through and talk through with us before coming in and producing. There are lots of regulations that you have to comply with in order to make a food product in the United States. I'm not going to go into too much detail about FDA regulations, but it can be a lot. And we have, Liz especially has a lot of expertise in kind of what these regulations are, what they mean, and how to comply with them. So we support businesses as they kind of navigate all of these things. Certain products most products have to be registered with the FDA, and then some products have to have further testing after they are prototyped to be classified as the appropriate type of food. I won't bore you with the details, so if you're interested in something specific, reach out to us after the workshop.
And I will bore you with the details.
So not boring.
Oh, not boring.
Other considerations are things like, I don't think this is on my list, but oh, it is. What container are you going to put your product in? So if you're making a tomato sauce, is it going to be 12 ounces or 16 ounces? What's your jar going to look like? What color is your lid going to be? Kind of all of the fun stuff. And then what are you going to put on your label? How are you going to design it? What kind of claims do you want to make? Are you claiming that your product is gluten-free or all natural? And what does that really mean? Can you say that? And so those are all kind of questions that come up in the beginning. Licensure and insurance, I won't go into detail on this, but you know, you do have to register your business, obtain the appropriate licensure to sell food. So maybe that's a wholesale license, maybe that's a retail license. And then we do like to have our food producers have insurance really for their own sake. I think I'll leave it at that for now, unless Liz, am I missing anything that you want to share?
No, that is definitely the short list of the important things.
Yeah, and I think, you know, people come to us at very different stages of their planning. Some folks are like ready to go and they've thought through all of these questions, and others are just have an idea and really want to work with someone to navigate all of it. And sometimes this, like going through just these questions on this one slide could take a year or more, depending on how much time you have to commit. And I think, you know, another thing is that many of our food entrepreneurs come to us with an idea, but they're also working full time. And so it can be tricky to kind of balance starting a new business venture and also working a full-time job. So we try to kind of be as supportive as we can and help people to think about a realistic timeline. And then also sync them up with the other resources the organization offers. Like,
and I also want to say, like, in the recipe development and scale up phase, there's a lot that happens, and a lot of people are using maybe a relative's recipe or something they've been doing for years, like Kate has said, and it doesn't scale well. So things have to change. And if grandma picked out 6 seeds out of every jalapeno when she made her hot sauce, well, that's not going to scale into a big process, because the labor involved in that would be too much. So that's also something that we help advise you on, is how to be more efficient in your processes, so you still have a great finished product that you're proud of, but you're not, you know, paying someone to pick 6 seeds out of the jalapeno, out of 400 pounds of jalapenos. So.
right. Yeah, and I think, you know, the other thing to mention is that there's kind of this initial step that happens where someone sends us a recipe and we usually say it's going to work or it's not going to work. And it's generally not going to work if we don't have the equipment to process your ingredients efficiently. So if someone has something that's complicated and we don't have the right piece of equipment, we're really just going to say no, because we're not going to be able to make your product at a cost that's going to make sense for your business to grow and to thrive. So we try to be really direct with people about that. And then if we can't do it, we have partners that we can refer them to. So what about local farms? I imagine some of you here maybe today are local farmers or local homesteaders and are curious about turning your produce into value-added products. Like I said, we have done so for years, doing things like freezing strawberries and freezing hot peppers, and making a variety of value-added products. And we recently formalized this program. So we partnered with the food science department at UMass Amherst, as well as some of our food processing partners, to develop, I think we have 10 value-added recipes that we now sort of own. And we're trying to pilot like a plug and play value-added model where you as a farmer could grow beets or cucumbers or tomatoes. And you could call us and say, hey, in the fall, I'm gonna have this many pounds of this type of produce. What can you do with it? And theoretically, we would be able to turn it into a tomato puree or a beet pickle or a salsa or a jam. Well, we actually don't have a jam, so I shouldn't say that, but we do have an apple butter. Actually, this is the simple list of products that we are able to do. And so we're piloting the program this season. Of course, things have been a little bit wonky because of COVID and because we've had to, you know, scale back and be careful during this time. But this is an opportunity for farmers to take advantage of now. And the way we've structured it is we source everything other than the key ingredient. So if you want to make a tomato puree, you call us and you drop off tomatoes. And we have the jar and the lid, and we've developed this, this label that will have your farm identified on the front. This is just an example of a tomato puree, but it could say something like, you know, Joe's Farm, local tomato puree. And so I'm really excited about this program. I think it's an awesome opportunity. And again, like, farmers can just get such a higher margin on their produce if they are able to add value to it and sell it at the farm stand or to sell it wholesale. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about our flash freezing operations. I hope some of you have heard about our Valley Vegetables flash freezing program. But if you haven't, I'll share a little bit of info. I want to let you jump in, Liz, for a minute.
Okay. So in 2014, we got some grants and some loans, and we used it to invest about $150,000 in the initial infrastructure to open an individually quick frozen freezing line. We're using liquid nitrogen. We, previous to this, they had done some, before my time, some experiments with bulk freezing vegetables. Now, I don't know anybody's age in the room, but I remember back in the day when you went to buy vegetables at the store, they were all in those frozen blocks. And so they experimented with doing those. The quality upon thawing and using was less than ideal. So we decided to invest in this type of technology. We're basically, it was a fairly big investment. We have a 12,000 gallon liquid nitrogen tank. We freeze at temperatures -90 to -130. But a little food science here. When you slow freeze a vegetable, the ice crystals in the cell walls of those vegetables take a long time to grow, and they grow very big, and they break the cell wall, so that when you thaw out or go to cook that vegetable, it's a little soggy. When you use individually quick frozen technology, it freezes very fast and very quickly, and it doesn't give the water molecules the option to get really big ice in the cells, so the cell walls don't break. So the end product is closer to a fresh than the slow freeze. So we invested in this, and we have frozen many different things and experimented freezing many different things. We're doing, the last 3 years, we've done some kelp trials with some local kelp farmers in the Long Island Sound. We've frozen fiddleheads. We experimented with some fresh hops for a local hop grower who was trying to preserve the green hops. I guess it makes a different kind of beer. But on average, we process, I think last year we did over 90,000 pounds of vegetables through this machine. And this year we were hoping to do 150,000 pounds. COVID kind of has thrown a wrench in those works, as a lot of our end users are K-12 schools. One of the reasons that we wanted to do this was so that we could get local vegetables into K-12 schools, so that in the winter, you know, because the school system basically, school year is after the harvest. So they can't get the fresh local food so much in January, February, March. So we started this program so that they could serve local broccoli and local carrots and local peppers during those months. So we are in, well, I guess the 6th year of this. And 2 years ago, we finally built a freezer to put the finished vegetables in. So 2 years ago, we did a major expansion project on the center, and we put in an 86 pallet freezer and an 84 pallet cooler, and some more about 3,000 square feet total. So that really ramped up our sales, because we could actually store, 86 pallets of vegetables, where before we really couldn't store much. We had to ship it off site. So did I get that all right, Kate?
Yes, thank you. I'm like having this fox issue and my partner's away and usually he manages all the animals while I do these things, but alas, he's not here and the fox hasn't given up. But I'm back. Thank you, Liz. Another kind of slide about this. So like Liz said, we've been packing these local veggies from within 50 miles into bulk packs for food service for 6 years now. And I think, yeah, you can see where some of the produce is coming from, but some of the buyers that you may know are Mount Holyoke College, Deerfield Academy, Springfield Public Schools, and recently we've started selling to some of the Boston hospitals, which has been a really cool opportunity for us. So Boston Medical, Boston Children's, Harvard, places like that, and a few elder care facilities here and there. But something that we did during the COVID crisis, which is of course ongoing, but we sort of did this pivot where we, for a few years, had been talking about what it would be like to pack these local frozen veggies into retail packs and sell them at local spots like grocery stores and co-ops and convenience stores. And so we kind of used COVID as a chance to repack everything that we had already frozen into these retail packs. This picture is an older picture. That's actually not what it looks like. We have a really fun new label. But we're in the process now of kind of piloting this program. So still sourcing local produce from, you know, some of the same farms in Deerfield and Hatfield and Hadley, but now packing retail and hoping to sell to consumers via retail outlets. So if you live in the area and you're looking for local food, we hope to have them at places like Big Y and the Co-op, and they're already at some farm stands, and at the Brattleboro Food Co-op in Vermont, actually. So this is something we're playing around with now, and we're hoping it'll kind of help to offset the costs of our bulk pack program too, which we tend to break even on in a good year. So I wanted to at least kind of mention that we partner with a number of other food processors in the region. So we're not the only one, although we do kind of all have very different specialties. And we formed a few years ago what's called the New England Food Processors Collective. So really working together to try to collectively scale and meet institutional and retail demand. So we meet regularly to talk about equipment needs and requests that are coming up from different food entrepreneurs and see who's the best person to handle it and who should invest in which piece of equipment. And, you know, does it make sense for our partner in Boston to do freezing, or should they really focus on baking, and kind of how can we tackle this as a food systems issue rather than as independent food processors? So some of them are listed here on this map. We work pretty closely with Commonwealth Kitchen out in Boston. They do a lot of work with food trucks and they have a commissary kitchen. And then the Vermont Venture Center is up in northern Vermont, and they do a really great fresh cut produce program, all sourced from local farms. And then Hope in Maine is another. They're out in Rhode Island. And so, yeah, I just kind of wanted to mention that we have this kind of collaborative program that we formed, and we're trying really hard right now to align it with the local food hub network. So trying to use local food distributors to move our product around New England rather than relying on some of the bigger guys, just to create a more resilient system. Why processed food? I just threw this in here so we can kind of come back to this. But again, I think that, you know, processed food doesn't have to be a bad thing. I think that, you know, adding value to local produce, local fruits, and even non-local items is just, it's great for local farms. It's a great opportunity for someone wanting to start a food business. And again, we live in a culture that is go, go, go. And so ready to eat, easy to use items are important and fun. And there's such a wide variety of them. So I think that's all I have. At the last minute, I threw in our website and mine and Liz's contact information. So folks, if you're a farm, big or small, if you're a local foodie thinking about making a food product, wanting to bring something to market, please reach out. We'd be happy to talk with you and think about what a prototype could look like, and look at a business plan, and just generally talk about whether or not it's a feasible idea. And if you're a local farm, we'd love to work with you. And that's all I have. So I think we can open it up for questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And because we are a smaller group, if you would like to take yourself off of mute and ask the question yourself, we always like to see your friendly faces. But you don't have to share your video. You can just take yourself off mute and speak if you would like to.
Doug, I'm also going to go ahead and I will share the slideshow from tonight in the chat. So if folks want to save that, the link will be there.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Don Sutherland. I'm wondering how the Board of Health in various townships can hinder the process of marketing a product for a farmer, a processed product. Is that an issue? Local townships, boards of health, how do you factor that in?
Well, the food processing center itself is regulated by several different health agencies, including our local Board of Health, the state Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the FDA. And also we are certified organic, so there's also our organic certifier. And our freezer is actually also USDA certified. So we have a lot of regulatory agencies that come to us. And I'd like to say we have a pretty good reputation in the town as being having very high standards about sanitation. And that's one of the things we do is help farmers if they can bring the produce to us and process it instead of processing it on farm. You know, because of the produce safety rule and everything, it can be hard for a farmer to actually process food on the farm. So they bring it to us and we're covered over all that. And we, you know, as far as like farmers markets, we work with a lot of different municipalities, farmers markets, so their Board of Health. And they, for the most part, it seems that they know that it's made at the food processing center, that it's, you know, going to be safe and you know, that they can sell it at the farmers market without a problem. But yeah, I mean, I've gotten calls from health departments all over Massachusetts about, you know, products made and how they're made, and local Board of Health departments often aren't familiar with the FDA acidified rules about what can and cannot be made, cottage rules. So we deal with the health departments a lot. I work in tandem with them and to make sure that everything made in the center is made properly and under the right regulations, and that farmers on the farm can process what they are allowed to process and not process what they're not allowed to process. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
I see a question from Caroline, who's asking, can you speak some to the incubator role that the kitchen plays and businesses that have grown beyond using your facilities? That's a great question. So we do sort of see ourselves as a business incubator. So we want to work with businesses that are just starting, or potentially, you know, they've started and they're scaling up a little bit, they're growing. But we do, kind of the goal for all of our food producers is that they grow to a point that they eventually graduate from our facility. And we've worked with a couple of well-known food producers in the region. So places like Real Pickles out of Greenfield, they started with us. Fire Cider out of the Berkshire started with us. And so, you know, they produced and they got to a point where, you know, maybe they were in the facility a couple days a week. And at that point, they're taking away time from other entrepreneurs. So it makes sense for them to kind of move out and either rent their own space or build out their own facility. I think both of them built out their own facilities. And so that's a win for us if a company could scale to a point where they graduate out.
It's kind of bittersweet because you spend a lot of time with these businesses growing. The the heartache and the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it. And then they get so big and they're successful and they leave, which is always tough, but that's what we're doing. So another big one that just graduated is Gold Thread Herbals. They make herbal elixirs, and they just graduated less than a year ago and moved into their own processing facility in Springfield, Mass. So, and they are distributing nationally. So we're proud of them.
I have another question from Patrick asking about, Patrick, you might have to help me with this one, but preserving to allow shelf life has appeal for marketing food that cannot be immediately used, but would also seem to create the possibility of competition from non-local sources. So I think maybe what you're talking about is ingredient sourcing. Do you want to jump in and clarify?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of selling food on a farm. I'm building a farm, and selling food that I might produce directly versus preserving it in some way and making a product which has appeal. There's a lot of things you can do, of course, like using maybe seconds of your tomatoes to make a sauce and sell it. But I'm thinking that you also, once you're on a shelf, once you've preserved your food, you have the advantage, of course, of being able to put it on a shelf. It doesn't have to be consumed immediately. But when you're on a shelf, you're on the shelf with competing products that might be made not locally at all. You know, it could be coming in from California, or huge, by huge concerns that have much greater scale and so forth. So I just wondered if there were any recommendations on still preserving the benefits of being local and having a strong connection with the community and preserving to be on a shelf.
Well, I mean, basically, you partner with the right people. And basically a lot of our producers, you know, they have to start a little small. So they start with the local co-ops, other local farm stands, local supermarkets, and local distributors to get into more local stores. And, you know, basically the people that are buying local, that's what they're looking for. So if they're going in a store and there's ragu and there's your sauce and they want local, they're going to buy local. Okay. So you just got to get in front of those people. And if you're running your own farm stand, and I'm going to use Atlas Farms, which is one of our local farms who has produced with us. They've been very successful. They opened their own farm stand. They have quite the following. And they do stock things that are other than theirs. So now they're another retail outlet for other local producers. So basically, you know, do your homework. A lot of people that come in to make it, they're like, I'm going to sell the Whole Foods. I'm like, okay, there's a few steps before you're going to get the Whole Foods, and you have to understand that. You know, you don't become a national brand overnight. It's going to take work. It's going to take time. But preserving, so when you're talking about preserving, so shelf life, you know, most shelf life sauces, whatever, have at least like a 1 to 2 year shelf life. So you have time. Where if you're doing a refrigerated or even a frozen item, your shelf life is much smaller. Distribution and storage is much more expensive. And if you want to get into grocery stores, the refrigerated and freezer section is much harder to get into than their shelves. Kate?
Thank you.
Anything to add to that?
I just did a clapping reaction, but I mean, the other thing that I know, and you know, my experience over the past year working with local farms is that many of our local farms who come in and do value-added products are just making them to sell them at their own farm stand. So they're either using our branding or they're branding it to go with their line of products. I don't know that any of our farms right now are making like a value-added product to sell wholesale, although we would encourage them to do that and help them to navigate it if they wanted to.
Well,
But most of them are like, oh yeah, the sriracha and also the honeys. old friends honeys, but like pickles, purees, I mean, from my conversations with farms, it's like they want to make a few hundred units, a few hundred jars to sell at their farm stand that season.
All right, so I'm gonna move on to Deb's question. So we are, the Massachusetts mass.gov has a list of co-packers, and we're on that. Also, a lot of local boards of health know us. Bay State Organic Certifiers, who is a local, well, they're the basically organic certifier for this area, knows about us and often refers people to us. And the Massachusetts Department of Public Health is also a proponent and will send us, referrals. And any other municipal sources, who knows? I mean, a lot of it's word of mouth.
Yeah, I know the Mass Specialty Food Association has their info and they promote a lot of our clients.
Yep.
Liz, I'm going to let you take the next question too, which is, do you know of any facilities in the Hudson Valley area?
There was one in Kingston. And it's funny because there was another one and we got some business after they closed, but I'm not more familiar. And the one that was in Kingston was Farm Bridge. Was that what they were called?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. So, sorry, don't know more than that. But if you go to Cornell and in their food entrepreneur and food safety, they do have some pretty good lists of co-packers in different regions, and New York is one of them.
The next question is about working with food service. So Heather's asking, have you ever worked with school systems, including their food service providers like Sodexo? And yes, we have. We actually work with Sodexo now. So Springfield Public School System uses Sodexo, and they buy from us pretty regularly, and they've been great to work with. The other big one is Chartwells. So Chartwells does K through 12 school food service in all of New England, and they have been our largest buyer, I think, for a couple of years now. And so there's like a lot of, setting up systems to sell to a food service provider can be challenging, but I think once we're a vendor and once we've figured out the distribution, then they tend to be pretty reliable and great.
So Keith, what has been our most successful types of products? So I personally think we do acidified sauces, salsas, the best. Clients that we've had, Kate mentioned a few, they've been beverages, fire, cider, naturally fermented pickles, kombucha. Those are some of our bigger people who moved up and out. But the center, as it's set up right now, we're really good at freezing things, and we're really good at doing, like she said, the thermal processing, hot fill and hold. I have a lot of barbecue sauce makers, a lot of hot sauce makers, and actually hot fudge. I have 4 now. So I hope that answers your question.
I think, is that the last question?
Yeah.
One thing before you all go, I wanted to share, UMass Amherst has partnered with URI and Cornell to develop this really amazing product development course for new food businesses that really looks at developing a food product through a food safety lens. And so they will talk about all of the steps that we touched on today in regards to making a food product, but they'll go deeper into the food safety considerations, which usually I think our food entrepreneurs are just not experts in that piece. And so that course is amazing. I think it's a day and a half. It might be 2 full days now. They piloted it last year and they've since done another round that just happened last week, and they're planning to offer it in the fall. And I think that it's free. So I'm going to link, what I'm linking in the chat here is a previous course that they hosted, but all the contact info is up to date. So you could reach out to Chris, whose contact is listed there, to see about attending the fall workshop if you are someone considering making a food product.
And I'll plug that too. It's a great program, well thought out. There's a lot to think about. And if a lot of that's thought about in the product development stage, it makes the latter stages much easier.
Awesome. Doug, do you have a few final words?
Yeah, I can go through my closing spiel, and if there are any other questions that come up, we can obviously, address them. But basically, thank you so much, Liz. Thank you so much, Kate, for all that great info and insight. We would really appreciate your feedback. So I've put a link to an online survey there in the chat for everyone. And it's really quick, and just if you have any insight to how everything's going, we appreciate your feedback. And then just as a reminder that the interactive attendee program book is updated pretty much daily. So before your next, before Friday's session, be sure to refresh your booklet to get all of the most up-to-date links. As well, if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on an event, I encourage you to sign up for our text reminder program. And you just text to the number 844-994-2477, and you text NOFA Summer Conference, NOFA SC, here, I'll put that, and they'll send you a quick text just 10 minutes before everything starts, so you won't have to worry about missing an event. As well, we hope that you will visit our vendor marketplace and find all the generous discount codes and valuable information from our over 20 vendors. You'll see some of our old favorites from conferences in the past, as well as new shops that you can browse online. And as well, be sure to visit our virtual raffle, where many of those same vendors have donated some really excellent prizes. You can purchase tickets to win. For example, from Chelsea Green, from J.K. Adams, Johnny's, Fedco, High Mowing Seeds, and more. All the proceeds from the raffle go toward the Summer Conference Scholarship Fund. So I'll put those links right in there for you to check that stuff out. And then right now, actually at 6:30, our entertainment between our sessions will begin. It is Hawthorne, a band created by Heather Scott and Taylor Holland. And they have some really great, they're a Boston-based group, and it's the Boston-based group is quickly gaining national recognition for its powerful vocals surrounded in old-time banjo, warm guitar, and dreamy electric lines. And that came from WBUR. So they are quickly rising. We're excited to have them on for tonight. And I will put that link right over here. So it's room E for anyone looking into their program book for that. And I'll put that in. I think that's all I have. Thank you so much for sharing that link. And are there any other questions?
Thanks everybody for joining us. It was fun. Feel free to reach out with more questions. All of our contact info is in the final slide of the link of the presentation.
Great.
See y'all later.
See you later. Thanks so much again. Good night.